Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to offer dana, then please do go to justthiszen.org/giving. Your support really does make a huge difference. Thank you so much.
It's just lovely to take a moment to sit here and see everybody who's made this enormous effort to be here. I'm always pretty continuously touched by what it takes for people to get here, how much they have to leave behind, what they have to do to just be here. So this sitting here, it's like you see it all and you really see people's practice, and that's a deeply touching thing. And we've moved Vimalakirti's chair here because Flint was unable to stop teaching. So we have some lovely documents from his flight home, some of which I'll be sharing with you, but we'll also put it all on the link tree. So his dedication to his practice is still here, and he did get the flight from Dallas, so we're hoping the next bit will happen. But he is definitely one of the people, one of the many, many people on the chair. And we've been chanting this, and the theme was around this initial chant, the vast is the robe of liberation. And there's so many lines in it that, for me, kind of layer, and I don't know what it's feeling like for you, but it's like you can say the same thing, you might have been saying it for years. The vast is the robe of liberation. You may have been just not paying attention to what you're actually saying. And then one day, something in the line, and you go, oh, vast is the robe of liberation. Not vast is the robe of suffering. Vast is the robe of liberation. A formless field of benefaction. I used to grit my teeth every time I said that line for a long time because it made no sense to me. There was nothing about the world that felt like a formless field of benefaction. A great field of shit as far as I could see. It was something about this. I don't know what that means. I don't know what it means, a formless field of benefaction. And I'm curious, for people, it's like, does that carry meaning for you? Do you have a sense when you say those words? Or do you have that kind of like, I don't know, or not really? How's it landing in you? Some of you are wearing your rakusus, or our rakusu for the first time. You're wearing the universal teaching. You actually always have been, but now it's a blue thing around your neck. What's that like? What is shifting in your experience? In the talk that Josh gave yesterday, and the woman had the glorious time in the little hut in the hills, and he's like, I'm not going to answer because I don't know what she realised. I realise the one true nature. What are you realising through your sitting? Thus harmonising all being. What does that one mean either? How do we move in relationship to this thing that we say? And how does it move from being something we say to something we kind of have an inkling about to something that we experience and know? I don't know how that happens, other than bloody persistence as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, how's it happening for you? And there are a lot of threads that have been weaving in me over the last few days and, of course, several decades. You know, the retreat for me has been full of loss and grief and celebration and connection and disconnection and aliveness and freedom and occasionally the endless shimmering energy of life. You know, what have you been experiencing? What have you been noticing about yourself in relation to this amazing world? You know, what's been opening? What's been contracting? It was, for me, such a deep pleasure to have Flint here, bringing only, you know, what Flint can. You know, all his years of experience and his practice and his priestcraft, which we don't have. And each time he pulls out a new thing and goes, what about this one? You know, and we knew from quite a little while ago that his being here would entail a sacrifice. A sacrifice from Erin to let his partner go. He was really insistent that he came. Really insistent. He said it would be good for him. For Flint, that is. You know, and a sacrifice from Flint. He was away for nearly 3 weeks, which was too long. Too long for someone who was in a completely new place, in a town he didn't know, away from everything he knew. It's too long. So he made that sacrifice to be here, and we were really aware of it. And when I knew he was going to leave early, I was walking and kin him behind him. And many of you will know each time he's come, the last few times, it's been like, this will be the last time. And it's like, maybe this will be the last time. And as I was walking behind him, I was watching his kind of really long, elegant feet, you know, and I was treading, and I was thinking, you know, I'm following in his footsteps, you know, as we all are following in each other's footsteps. And I thought, you know, my size 6s are no match for his size 12s. But, you know, these are still my feet. You know, they're not going to be his feet. They're my feet. And they've carried me through fairly sturdily my life. And that's what I can keep trusting, as we all can keep trusting our own sturdy feet to keep carrying us through. And my job is not to follow in his footstep as though I am a size 12 shoed person, but to follow fully as myself. And that's each of our tasks, is to live fully as ourselves, and that we're always walking into the unknown. You know, when we do kinhin, it's like it's such a pointless bloody activity. You know, we're going round, we're not going anywhere, and people can think we're going too slow or we're going too fast, and I'm like, really, we're not going anywhere anyway. But what we are doing is purposefully walking together. Purposefully walking together. And noticing all the ways in which that delights us, irritates us, confuses us, transforms us. We walk together. And I was thinking, you know, how do we keep going when we know our hearts are going to break? You know, that many times we're walking through our lives into situations that are heartbreaking, away from situations that are heartbreaking. And Jill asked so clearly, you know, how do I do this, knowing my heart's going to break? And practice is, what else are we going to do? What else are we going to do? There's a lovely line from Welcome. Just take your time. I'm so appreciative of how the bread makers have juggled delivering beautiful things to allow us to do that. So thank you.
May I speak just to say there's a bit of a technical thing with the ovens, which is why John and I are having why I'm a bit late now. They're not coming up to temperature properly. So.
Always something. If it's not a carrot kerfuffle, it's the ovens. So in the there's a book called The Horse, the Boy, the Fox and the Mole, which I'm sure many of you will know is a delightful little bodhisattva path. And the boy says, I can't see a way through, and the horse says, can you see your next step? And the boy says, yes. And he says, just take that. And that's all we're ever going to do. Take the next step together. And 7 of our students embarked on the practice of sewing their next steps. Now you've sewn it. More new next steps. And we all stepped together through the ceremony. And I just wanted to share a little bit about what happens for me in those ceremonies, because I imagine it's not just particular to me. So we have a rehearsal, and Judy will smile because she knows this so well. We have a rehearsal for the thing, and there's lots of so then we go blah, 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 and you move there and we move there, and there's a kind of, the walk-through. I have a lot of mind chatter through the walk-through. You know, oh, good Lord, here I am, faux Buddhist, you know, all of the stuff that happens. Will I remember? Will I do it? Will they remember? There's that kind of anticipatory anxiety and the anticipatory, false pretenses stuff and all of that can happen inside of me. Also, that's pretty. Mine like a magpie. But it's something happens when the bell goes. Something happens when I enter fully into the ceremony. So when I'm not doing a walkthrough, something shifts in my experience. And it becomes an embodied experience of ritual and ceremony. It actually feels real. And I'm really curious about that. What do we do in our lives where we're doing the walkthrough? You know, when are we in that place of feeling like, you know, we're walking through, I'm being this, I'm being that. You know, whatever it is, and then somehow, whatever bell it is that wakes us up, and we enter fully and deeply into the ceremony of our lives, what happens? And I don't think we do that on our own. I think we do that. We wake each other up. And Jan talked about her threat alert system, you know, and I reflected on, you know, this formless field of benefaction, you know, the threat alert system that we all carry, all nervous systems have them. It's not particular to Jan. You know, what happens when we stop seeing the world consistently as a place of threat? What happens if the system can relax and think, probably it's okay? And certainly for us here, there are certainly very many people who are living in the world where it's a really good idea that they keep their threat alert system on. But here, in Dodiscumli, you know, ticks are our mightiest enemy here. You know, what happens in your system when we start to feel like maybe there's the possibility of a formless field of benefaction? What's it like to taste the teachings? You know, we say in that opening verse, don't we? We're going to taste the teachings. The teachings don't go in through our brains. You know, we think you think you're going to learn something from me. And I'm like, you're so kidding yourself. But it's like, but if freedom speaks to freedom, and awakening speaks to awakening, and Buddha speaks to Buddha, that's what awakens us. What awakens is what's in you, not what I'm saying. Not what anybody is saying. It's what's already in you. There's this a little poem from Wendell Berry, a beautiful poet. And I think it refers a lot to what Josh and Flint were referring to burn up your whole life in active participation of your own life. To burn up your own life in active participation of your own life. It's called What We Need Is Here. Geese appear high over us, pass, and the sky closes. Abandon, as in love or sleep, holds them to their way. Abandon, as in love or grief, holds them to their way. Clear in the ancient faith, what we need is here. What we need is here. And we pray not for new earth or heaven, but to be quiet in heart and in eye clear. What we need is here. To be quiet in heart and in eye clear. And that in a way is kind of the purpose of sitting, is to find, to be quiet in heart and to have more clarity about how you're seeing yourself and the world. And can we abandon? You know, what an interesting word. Isn't it interesting, you know, to be abandoned is a terrible thing. You know, if you feel abandoned, it's heartbreaking. But to abandon yourself to love, to give yourself fully, to abandon yourself to grief, to give yourself fully, is to arrive at a really different place. What we need is right here. And of course we've all had to pivot to support our teacher to do most what his heart needed, you know, to return home. And one of the little phrases, you know, there are little phrases that we kind of become, you know, in danger of being slightly trite because we say them a little bit often, but they carry for me such a depth. And one is, we are all walking each other home. We are all walking each other home. And home is when we drop our bodies. That's where we're walking to. And we were offered the opportunity to see, to be the ones who were cherishing and being with someone and saying, you must do this, you must. And I would hope we would all offer each other the same, you must do this, whatever it is. And these events touch us deeply, you know, Flint and Erin's situation is going to touch us really deeply, but both because we're, you know, mostly we're going to be empathic human beings, we're kind, we understand. But also, in this walking each other home, we see others ahead of us on the path. We see where we're all going. It's pretty inevitable. We're a pretty old Sangha, you know. There's I think probably the average age, you know, the combined age here is probably about 7,000. You know, it's like we are walking each other home. And I can watch Flint and Erin and see their situation, and Catherine and John, and Lynn and Peter, and my beloved partner here, 45 more years. He keeps the dates, I don't. Oh, how many?
1976.
Okay. Oh, 49. There's just something, words come out your mouth and they're not really possible. And I can see, we'll go in that direction. It's utterly inevitable. And, as Julia sort of pointed out so beautifully, we walk the paths and they diverge and they're not the same paths and they all sort of end up in the same place. We don't know how that's going to look. And for a long time, one of the songs that Josh and I have loved is by a group called, it's really Iron and Wine. It's a really lovely American group. And one of the song is called Naked as We Came. Naked as we came. And one of the lines is, one of us will die inside these arms, eyes wide open, naked as we came. And we like that. Because it's a reminder. And this is the truth. This is the truth of our lives. It's also a very good song. And it's something about, seeing this sitting practice as about being fully in our lives and preparation for where we're going. Preparation for what is inevitably going to meet all of us. Not as an admonition. That wake up, don't waste your precious life. I think a lot of people are can have a real finger attached. Don't waste it. Like, come on. And it's like, well, what does not wasting it mean? And then that's awful, isn't it? Because then you're just gripped by not wasting your life, which is, pretty much wasting your life. It's like, what does not wasting? It just means living your own life, the life you've got, not somebody else's, not some other time, not some other place. This one, exactly as it looks in this here and now. Fully, which means living it fully with all your obstacles, all your hindrances, all your anxieties. It doesn't mean living it fully like it's all marvellous. It means living it fully as the timorous, frightened, damaged, scarred, wonderful, amazing, blazing human being that you are. That's what it means. So Flint continued enacting his vow to relieve suffering and sending us some thoughts. So some of them I'm going to share today. But I will put them all on the link tree. So last week, so this is part of what he sent. He said, last week in the spring retreat with the Open Door Zen community in Madison, Wisconsin, I had the great honour of entrusting Kim Nuchel as a new lay teacher in our lineage. There is much I would say about her. Her name is Kanshin Zen Ki, broad heart, total function. But here I simply want to recount a moment she spoke of in the Dharma statement she made during the ceremony. She told the story of an encounter we had in which we were discussing the possibility of her entrustment, and she was trying to come to terms with its meaning for her. Mostly at that time, at least, she was naming all her hindrances, which made her an unlikely and inappropriate candidate for entrustment. After making a list of her failures and limitations, I apparently responded with something she never forgot. When Flint told us this story, he said, I had no idea I said this. But she said, she remembered him saying, Kim, all of that gets entrusted too. Everything is entrusted. I was reminding her and myself that we all encounter obstacles along the path and they never stop arising. This is life as it is, and we don't overcome hindrances or get over life. The only way to get over life is to die. What is possible, especially if we have a teacher accompanying us and good Dharma friends, as we do, supporting us, is to begin to overcome our hindrances to encountering obstacles on the path, to overcome our hindrances in encountering obstacles on the path. The hindrances are the contractions and the beliefs and the ideas and the second arrow and the story we tell ourselves about the obstacles. The obstacles are always going to be there. There will always be stuff. And I can honestly say, now I'm 73, it never stops. It never stops. There is no sunny upland. There is no calm harbour. Certainly not one you get to stay in for long. Everything is a Dharma gate. As I was walking down here, I was getting a text from my granddaughter about my great-grandson. It's like, oh yeah, here we go. Shohaku Okamura said, the scenery of life is another expression that Uchiyama Roshi used to explain our Zazen practice, the scenery of life. I was once in a really blissful state in a Hakomi setting. The oxytocin really gets to you and it's like blissful. And I was having a lovely day and someone said, oh, how are you? And I said, today I'm mostly being Norfolk. There's wide open spaces, huge sky, very little going on. The scenery of our lives. He said that even when we adopt the Bodhisattva practice and path and practice Zazen, letting go of thought, we will still experience many different conditions in all aspects of our lives. Some are painful, some pleasing, and some are neither. Yet all these different conditions are simply the scenery of our lives, and we should keep working and studying regardless of the circumstances we encounter, so that we can keep investigating the myriad dharmas, which is all beings and all things. This week, there's been a lot of external scenery. You can go for a walk in the beautiful woods, or you can notice the really churned up earth where they've been laying a line, it's like everything. And inside you, I imagine nobody's been Norfolk all week. You will have been a lot of different sceneries. And Flint said, a talk is really, us taking you for a walk inside our minds, for which I apologise, and our experience. And weaving in the hearts and minds of those who've spoken to us, and resonated with us in the hope and trust that something might catch in you, so that we all support the Dharma in its flow. We all harmonise all being. We all find ways to resonate. One of the things that, often little things kind of catch my mind, and one of the things that I've been intrigued by is the fact that if soldiers march in step across a suspension bridge, they have to break step, because otherwise they might start matching the natural resonance of the structure and collapse it. So if they were to march in lockstep, something might happen that is the same resonance as the structure, and the structure will start vibrating and the thing will fall apart. Isn't that interesting?
Thank goodness they know.
They know, thank goodness. I imagine they found out. And resonance is where small repetitive movements can cause large, and in the case of the bridge, obviously a destructive force. Everything has its own natural frequency and resonance. And when that frequency gets matched, that's the resonance. The natural resonance of the Zendo is life. Is this pulsing life The spirit of the Dharma is the natural residence of the Zendo. And the many repetitions of the verses, of bowing, of sitting, of the unseen and unspoken connections between us here, all beings that are here with us, can start to break something down, to allow the natural resonance of the universe to come forward. Though on many occasions, of course, it feels like the bridge is bloody collapsing, but actually the structure of self has to find a way to get really shaky, has to find a way to break open. And when we can start feeling like that's actually going to release us into the formless field of benefaction, not the deep abyss of awfulness, then actually that's the function of our sitting together, to tune into this natural resonance. And together that's what we're trying to do. And we help each other. When Josh said, "Will you help me in my practice?" Last night, it's like our sitting is helping every single person around us tune into this natural resonance of the universe, the formless field of benefaction. And it's only with courage and faith we march forward together, our little marching steps in Kinhin. We're moving together to shake the very foundations of our delusion of separation. And that's what we want to do. We want to shake that delusion until it can't hold up anymore. Until it's not a bridge from one place of separation to another, but actually swimming in the formless field. The quote that Category Roshi gave, that both Flint and Josh shared, is really echoing for me too. And when the quote is, when that universal energy touches down in the intersection of time and space, it temporarily appears as form. The form of a human being, the form of a tree, a bird, a pebble. To go back to the fast show, what happens if you thought, today I'm mostly being universal energy touching down in the intersection of time and space and showing up as Trudy, or Jan, or Brenda, Jill, or the insistent chiff-chaff that we keep hearing in the woods, or the little rabbits that come out when they think we're not here. What happens when you think, that's exactly what I am? I'm not this limited person. I'm not just the sum of my conditioning. I'm that, and I'm universal energy appearing like this, and like this, and like this, and like this. And one of the other things that's been really moving in me has been the many levels of the meaning of, because it's in the chant, I realize the one true nature. And I love words that kind of, a millefeuille words, they're layers and layers and layers. And realize is one of those words. You may not have realized. Realize is one of those words. And it carries three distinct possible meanings. It means, can refer to a moment of understanding and becoming aware of something, to make something real or concrete. And it also means to bring something to completion or fruition. Don't you think that's just the most delightful expression of practice? We realize, we become aware, something becomes real, and we can move towards something that's completion. In the Genjo Koan, Dogen says, we become aware that all things are Buddha Dharma. There is delusion and realization, practice, birth and death, and there are Buddhas and sentient beings. And then he goes on to say, as the myriad things are without an abiding self, there is no delusion, no realization, no Buddha, no sentient being, no birth and death. So there is, and there isn't. There is, and there isn't. And that's the paradox of our practice. I am definitely here. I'm sitting here talking. It's going to be on record. I'll be on YouTube forever. This is happening. This thing in your body is happening. You are really here. And you are a transient moment of life energy, moving through time and space. I can see my delusions. I have moments also of realization and seeing, oh, that deluded, huh? My grandchildren and my great-grandchild have been born. Life is coming into being. Things are moving. And, I only have to look in the mirror to see old age and to be with my lovely friends and know about sickness and death. Those things are real, aren't they? And they're all held in this formless field. When we stop being quite so interested in our protections, when we stop being quite so interested in fending off the world or taking care of our shaky sense of self, we're so much bigger than we think we are. And we're perfect right now. The Appamada website says of the road chant, I love this, this is their little quote from their website. True spiritual freedom is boundless, uncountable, immeasurable, and profound. It is also a force field for the benefit of all that lives. It is pure, uncontaminated good. We wrap ourselves in the teaching of the Buddha, a luminous expression of who we truly are. And in this way we realize our intimate connection with all existence, because we are all existence. We are everything happening in the universe right now. An unbroken field of life, or what the Tibetan teacher Longchenpa called the creative intelligence of the universe. You could also walk around today thinking, I am the creative intelligence of the universe. Because you are. Because we all are. And we're our own particular idiosyncratic selves. And on Monday I had the enormous privilege of being with and watching the beautiful faces and bodies of the preceptors. Honestly, they could have lit up a room. It was you could see the spirit of practice. You could see the light energy of life. It was just so clearly moving in those people who in those moments had fully concentrated their hearts and minds on taking those vows, however shaky they were feeling inside. And it was the light of the universe. It shone. To come back to geese, at the end of the poem, Wild Geese, Mary Oliver says, the wild geese high in the clean blue air are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself. The world offers itself. The myriad things come to you. The world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. They're telling you out there, the chiff-chaff is saying, you're home, you're home. You belong. The blackbird's singing, you're here. I'm here, you're here. And the second meaning of realization is to become real. We actually do make something. We made a pop-up zendo. You know, we made the journey here. We made, the amount of work that it takes to make a retreat happen. You know, the amount of work that's happening even now. You know, people finding matches, sorting out ovens, doing this, doing that. You know, we're making something alive. And it doesn't always work. A little bit like us. We're alive and we don't always work. And we sit as though we're Buddha. You know, that took me a long time to kind of get that sense that I'm sitting as though I'm Buddha because I am Buddha. I'm enacting a ceremony of what is already here. You sit as though you're Buddha, an expression of Buddha nature. And our actions become the activity of Buddha nature. And Flint quoted someone as saying, there's no such thing as enlightened beings, there's only enlightened activity. You know, there's only universal energy in action. And in the spirit of practice, you know, it's what is it to move through the world with that intention to be the universe in action? Because you are. I mean, that's the really funny thing, is like, you are anyway. You know, why not own it? Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says, absolute perfection is here and now, not in some future, near or far. The secret is in action, here and now. It is your behaviour that blinds you to yourself. It's your behaviour that blinds you to yourself. Disregard whatever you think yourself to be and act as if you were completely perfect. I don't think he means like Trump. I think he means in that really deep way of, you know, here in our imperfect perfection, here moving through the world as we fully are. And everybody here is enacting this courage, you know, the courage to turn up as we are. It doesn't matter whether we think we're Buddhas. You know, in fact, Joko Beck, when asked if she was enlightened, replied, I hope never to think such a thing. I hope never to think such a thing. This awakening of Buddhahood is not something created or achieved, neither non-existent or existent. The essential practice, as understood in the Zen tradition, is to simply wake up to what Hongzhi calls the empty field. You don't make anything, you just wake up. That's why we say wake up to the world as it is, wake up to you as who you are. Although we realise more or less thorough vision of the empty field, in practice we are often thrown back into conditioned habitual responses, concocted, I love that, concocted previously by our limited human consciousness. We concoct things, you know. We've got all these ingredients and this is what we make. This is the cake. This is the bread. Look at it. It's just the same ingredients. We just happen to look like a sort of lumpy old rock bun. Or a very nice French patisserie. I don't know. And the third meaning of realisation relates to this. Everything is complete. I think this is a really tricky one for us to kind of feel like everything is complete. Just by being here, you are expressing Buddha nature. Everything is a perfect and complete expression of this universal energy. And in a chaotic and difficult and painful and cruel world at times, it can be really, really hard to look at the situation we're in at the moment and begin to think this is perfect. I think mostly we run into a really Western conception of perfection. In Japanese culture, wabi-sabi is much closer to what they mean by this kind of perfection, which is the thing which is made as it is with all its imperfections. So a beautiful pottery cup is made with all the imperfections in it. It's not like a sort of piece of very, very fine German porcelain, you know, which will just break. Which is only perfect if everything in it is completely right. In this tradition of wabi-sabi, you know, the flaws are inherent in its perfection. They're not separate from perfection. Our imperfection is part of our perfectness. We're just here as we are. So for me, I had to do quite a lot of work with this word perfect. It's not a word I like anyway. I'm not one of those people who suffers from perfectionism. You may have noticed. You know, but it's not a lovely concept to me. I don't like the ideas of being perfect. There's something that's always felt cruel about it to me, because nothing I see has ever been perfect. I know I'm not perfect, and I know the people around me aren't. I started translating it as not perfection, but the only possible response to all of the causes and conditions that are arising in this moment. It's the only possible response to the myriad things. And it's not static, because that's the other problem we have in the West, is we want something to be perfect. And once it's perfect, we don't want it to do anything. It's kind of like, that's it. You know, the perfect wedding day where everything goes right, you know, the perfect moment, you know, and it's got a kind of, for me, it's something very constricted and kind of tight. It's perfect, perfect. I don't know if any of you are the same. You know, I've probably got like 10 perfect garments, because that one was briefly perfect, but now it's not quite perfect for this. So I got another one. That'll be you know, so there's something about this, the grip of perfect, which is really different from what we're being invited into. This enormous field where everything is just as it is because of all the causes and conditions. What if, you know, the tired, bored, irritated, dissatisfied, grumpy, joyous, sleepy, content you, sick you, well you, tired you, what the fuck's going on you, was the perfect response to all the causes and conditions in your life at this moment. Because it is. That actually isn't a what if. That actually is what it is. Several pages later, I'll end. I just want to end with two of my heroes. Two of my heroes. One is Nick Cave, who I think is a bodhisattva. And he does a beautiful thing called the red hand press, red hand letters. And people write to him deep and heartfelt inquiries, and slight and meaningless gibberish, but he reads them all and he replies quite often. And Leah wrote and asked him and said, "When you say 'I love you too' back to fans at concerts, what do you mean by that? How can you love a total stranger?" And in answer to this question, he said, "Leah, when I tell the audience I love them, the sentiment is entirely true. I feel an emotional transaction with the crowd that is powerful and profoundly intimate. I stand before you all, strangers, witnessing you both individually and collectively, and sense an unbounded love. This love is true, It's not symbolic, metaphorical, or platitudinous. I see before me a group of human beings. Just like I do right now. Precarious and vulnerable, granted a brief time on this earth, each filled with a shocking potential for beauty and terror, good and evil, and with the extraordinary capacity to give and receive love. At that moment, love is the appropriate response. At that moment, love is the appropriate response. Love Dogs by Rumi. One night a man was crying, Allah, Allah. His lips grew sweet with the praising until a cynic said, so I've heard you calling out, but have you ever gotten a response? The man had no answer for that. He quit praying and fell into a confused sleep. He dreamed that he saw Khidr, the guide of souls, in thick green foliage. Why did you stop praising? Because I never heard anything back. Has anyone ever felt like that? They've never heard anything back? Because I never heard anything back. This longing you express is the return message. This longing you express is the return message. The grief you cry out from draws you towards union. Your pure sadness that wants to help is the secret cup. The longing you feel is the place you drink from. Listen to the moan of a dog for its master. That whining is the connection. There are love dogs that no one knows the name of. Give your life to be one of them. One night a man was crying, Allah, Allah. His lips grew sweet with the praising until a cynic said, so, I've heard you calling out, but have you ever gotten any response? The man had no answer for that. He quit praying and fell into a confused sleep. He dreamed and he saw Khidr, the guide of souls, in a thick green foliage. Why did you stop praising? Because I never heard anything back. This longing you express is the return message. The grief you cry out from draws you towards union. Your pure sadness that wants to help is the secret cup. Listen to the moan of a dog for its master. That whining is the connection. There are love dogs no one knows the name of. Give your life to be one of them.